Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صدق الله العظيم. Okay, inshallah, today we're moving on to the next ayah, and in fact, the next ruku of Surah Baqarah. And this will be something which is going to be slightly changing the theme, inshallah, but maintaining the overall theme, which is of guidance and hidayah. So let's have a look at this ayah and see what's happening. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون صدق الله العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and mention, addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when your Lord said to the angels, indeed, I will make upon the earth a successive authority, or a Khalifa is the actual word which is used. They said, the angels, will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood, while we declare your praise and sanctify you? He, Allah Ta'ala, replied, indeed, I know that which you do not know. So this is a translation of the ayah, the two ayahs that I'm reading today. And mention, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when your Lord said to the angels, indeed, I will make upon the earth a successive authority. They said, will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood, while we declare your praise and sanctify you? And he, Allah Ta'ala, said, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in response, indeed, I know that which you do not know. So this ayah, as I say, marks the beginning of a new ruku. And a ruku, as I explained previously, is a section. It's a new section, not necessarily a new topic, but a new section. Sometimes it can be a new topic. And a ruku normally consists of a few ayat to 10 to 12 ayat, and they usually mark off a change in the address, a change in the theme, a change in the topic, a change in subject, or just a continuation, but with a slight subtle difference. So in this case, it happens to be a new topic, and the topic is the beginning of mankind. So this is the first time in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala engages us in the creation and the beginning of ourselves, our own beginnings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses this to the Malaika, and Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is then reciting this to us as it's being revealed to him. However, the theme of guidance, hidayah, and the reminder of the favors of Allah Ta'ala, that continues. So as you know from the previous session, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the creation, how he created everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also talked about how you can be disobedient to him, how you can reject him when he created us and we were nothing. And then we will die and we'll come back to life again. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then question us again after giving us a life for the second time. So all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recounted to us, and then he continues in this, but the whole of the story of mankind, if you like, the whole of that is actually another example of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuing that theme of reminding of us of the favors of him, and at the same time the overall theme of guidance that continues throughout the whole Quran. Regardless, everything in the Quran is actually on the overall theme of hidayah, because we know that the Quran is hidayah, huda lil muttaqin, as Allah Ta'ala said at the beginning, this is guidance for the muttaqin. So that theme remains, but within that overall theme, the topic can change, and that's what's happened here. The topic has changed to the creation of mankind, but the idea of reminding us of Allah's favors remains, and the overall theme, as I say, that also remains. So Allah Ta'ala, through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, requires the reader to recall or remember or be reminded, if you like, of the beginnings of the creation of mankind. So Allah Ta'ala says, why is qala rabbuka lil malaikati? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that remember when I said to the angels, when I informed them, inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, I am about to put on the earth a khalifa. And this khalifa is sometimes translated as literally as khalifa, a leader, or a deputy, or a vicegerent, or sometimes, as in this case, it's described as successive generations, but meaning that leadership in successive generations. So the overall idea is about being responsible on earth on behalf of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah ta'ala gives mankind the responsibility of looking after the earth. So having outlined the creation of mankind from nothing and the outward creations for the benefit of mankind, this is what Allah ta'ala described in the last two ayah, the outward creation, the heavens, the earth, the moon, etc. We are now reminded of the inward favor. So in this new ayah, we are given a different kind of favor, which is an inward favor. As I said, the creation on the outside is what Allah Ta'ala has created all around us, the things we can take benefit from. But the inward honor is the inward favor is the favor of honor, i.e. we're called Khalifa, the successor on earth. So you see, when Allah Ta'ala informs the angels, he could have said to the angels, I'm going to create inni ja'ilun fil ardi insan, I'm going to create mankind, because that's what he created. However, it doesn't say that. He, instead of saying that, he says Khalifa. Now, Khalifa is our role on earth, the role of some being who's a successor on earth, who takes care of things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we're actually being given, if you like, a duty. And when a person is given a duty, a responsibility, he feels honored. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to mankind not as a human being, not as mankind, not even as a man, for what he created was a man. He did not refer to this creation in any of those terms. Instead, he refers to that being by his role, by his status, and that is honoring mankind. And all of us are in that, because we are all the children of Adam al-Islam, and that honor is bestowed upon all of us. So I want to take a little bit closer look at this Khalifa idea, and in particular the idea of Khalifa and manhood. So having created the man, Allah Ta'ala bestows upon him the role of Khalifa. So here are the angels awaiting to see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. He's talked about the fact that he's going to create a new being. This being is going to look after the earth, and this being obviously is going to be in multitudes, as the angels were used to that. They were themselves in multitudes, there's millions of them. And so they were waiting to see what kind of creation this would be. So they understood that this creation was in two genders, male and female. And of the two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates the male, the man, first. And when he's therefore referring to the role of Khalifa, he's referring to the man. This is something which we have to reflect upon and understand, in the sense of Allah's creation and Allah's wisdom as to how and what and when and where he creates. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to the Khalifa, and then he creates the male, the man. So this helps us to understand one of the innate natures of the man, which is as a role of Khalifa, the role of leadership. This implies that leadership is instinctive in a man, that a man feels good, a man feels whole, a man feels secure, a man feels at peace and harmony within himself if he is fulfilling that role. If that role is not being fulfilled, if it's being impeded, or if it's being compromised, if somebody else is taking that role off him, or contradicting it, or overbearing him, then he will not feel fulfilled. So part of manhood is that instinctively he has this notion, this yearning and ability to be a leader, to lead, whether it's his family, whether it's his community, whether it's an army, whether it's a nation, whatever it is, a man has that instinctive nature within him. Having said that, woman also has and can have roles of leadership too, but those roles have to be within boundaries that preserve her dignity. We may find that women get into various roles of leadership, but not all of those are suited in terms of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given haya to the woman, that many of those roles take the haya of a woman away. as a result of which it breaks down that which is integral to her, which is instinctive within her, apart from leadership, which is haya. Haya is an integral part of a woman. And if that is taken away, if that is broken down, then it damages her psychology, it damages her mentality, and her femininity is affected, and her femininity can be lost. And that's the problem that a lot of sisters may have, who get into roles of responsibility, where they're dealing with others, where they're dealing with men, where they're dealing with non-mahrams, etc., or they're even in the wrong environment. The woman doesn't have to be in that environment, but she'll say, I'm doing this because the brothers aren't doing it. That would not be correct. That is not an acceptable reason, because it takes away from her femininity, and her femininity is what Allah has created her upon. So for her to damage her own femininity, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created her upon, would not be right. That would be a sinful thing for her to do. So for a man, the role of leadership is there. For a woman, the role of leadership is there within particular boundaries. For example, amongst sisters, amongst children, amongst infants, amongst babies. For a woman to take on such a project, to work within such a project and fulfill those things, that is part of her nature, her instinctive nature, her femininity. So it helps not only to fulfill her need for leadership, but also it helps to develop her femininity. And she remains with that femininity. However, in the case of a man, he has more outward leadership roles, and for him it is a much more needed requirement. Whereas a woman, if she doesn't have roles of leadership in her life, it's okay. It doesn't harm her so much. Whereas with a man, it does harm his manhood. It does take away from his manhood, in the same way as a woman in the wrong context of leadership would lose her femininity. So a man without his leadership, without having some, even if it's to lead his wife and his children, that is sufficient for him. But if he doesn't even have that, if that is compromised, then it can take away from his manhood and have psychological effects upon him. This is the basis upon which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created insan. So therefore, ultimately, for both genders, leadership requires to draw upon integrity as a man or a woman. What that means now is that both men and women, brothers and sisters in Islam, have to be strong, have to draw upon their strengths, have to draw upon their skills in their lives, and no matter what they find themselves facing, they must draw upon their leadership skills to see themselves through those situations, through those problems. It could be something, in the case of a man, it could be to do with his congregation in a masjid. It could be to do with his students as a scholar. It could be to do with his people as a leader of a community. And he's then fulfilling the role of leadership, and by taking to the community, communicating with them, understanding their needs and fulfilling their needs. In the case of a woman, it could be something as simple as a marriage, and she is finding difficulties in that marriage. She's trying to juggle her children and her husband and the needs of all of them, and she's finding difficulty in that. But she draws upon her strength, upon her courage, and determinedly finds a way through. And when she finds a way through, then that will fulfill her as in terms of the needs of leadership in her, because that's part of her integrity. So in both cases, they will fight for, struggle for, commit to the role of Khalifa in both cases. So this is important that we have this within us, and therefore we should use that and therefore solve our problems, whether it's the community, whether it's individuals, whether it's families. And in this day and age, we face many situations, and those situations we need to be able to overcome, and that is overcome because of the community and each individual in that community understanding and connecting with that role of Khalifa that Allah Ta'ala has put inside, specifically the men to take the lead role, and then for the women, even if it is to support the man in the role of leadership, that is sufficient for a woman to do. Then she becomes the backbone for that man as his wife. She becomes the backbone for him in his endeavors and his efforts, and she retains the reward that he gets for herself as well, inshallah. So this is part of Khalifa, the idea of manhood and also the idea of womanhood. Going back to the ayah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. So here, and as the ayah translates, mention Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when your Lord said to the angels, indeed I will make upon the earth a successive authority. They, the angels, said, would you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood while we declare your praise and sanctify you? He, Allah Ta'ala, said, I indeed know what you do not know. So the angels, now their turn, they respond and they say, will you place upon the earth one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood? Now the angels could never and would never question Allah Ta'ala's authority. So that's not what they are doing here. And that's not how it should be understood. The angels in Islam are pure beings. They are the first thinking beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, and they were created from nur, which is a divine type of light. Now this light is different to the light we see on earth. For example, it's definitely not electrical light. It's not the light from the sun. So these types of lights that we are used to, the light from a light bulb, for example, it's not that kind of a light. It's a separate and distinctly separate light to that what we are used to on earth. It is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the angels from, so it has some form of substance, whereas the light on earth, the light from the sun, etc., sunlight, it doesn't have any substance. So this type of light has some form of substance, and from it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created intelligent, thinking beings. So that's the nur that they're created from. However, angels, they have no nafs. Unlike us, they have no ego, no desires. They don't have a gender either. So there's not male or a female angel. They simply do not have gender, and they do not have appetites. Appetites meaning, for example, the appetite for food, the appetite for sexual relationships, the appetite for example, love and other emotional needs. They do not have any such appetites. They do not have appetites for power and glory and recognition either. None of these things. They are simply pure beings created from nur, and as a result of that, because of their pure essence, they are so perfect in obedience and devotion to Allah Ta'ala. That which they're created from nur makes them so, because that's their essence. And because nur is so, if you like, pure and so untainted, unblemished, without stain, if you like, and remains that way. It doesn't get stained over time. Unlike, for example, fabric, clothes, even us, skin gets tainted, can get stained, can become dirtied, whereas nur doesn't. So angels are pure in their essence, and as a result of that purity, their obedience and loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is absolute. It's perfect. And they understood this, and on a basis of that is what they're asking the question to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. If you like, their extreme love and their extreme respect and awe of Allah Ta'ala. And so they're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is this being going to create problems on earth in defiance of you? Now, prior to the creation of man and after the creation of angels, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created the jinn. So this helps us to understand more about why they would ask such a question. They understood the nature of man to some extent, so they were concerned. However, they also had an example of what happened when things went wrong. And so they're asking, and the reason why they're asking is mostly to do, as most of the Mufassirin say, to do with the jinn. Now the jinn, this is the first mention of them in this topic as well. They are the second thinking beings created from nar, from fire. The angels are created from nur, light. The jinn were created from the next substance down, because nar, fire, has a luminosity to it. It lights things up. It has a light in it, but it also has heat. So this is the substance from which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the jinn. And at some other time, inshallah, we'll discuss this in more detail. But the kind of fire is something that's called smokeless. So a fire that is so intense, it does not give off smoke. So on earth, we don't have that. We have fire and it gives off smoke. So it's not that kind of fire. And just as the angels are not created from a kind of light that we're used to on earth, the jinn are not created from a fire that we're used to on earth either. They do, however, have gender, they do have a nafs, and they do have appetite. Now, as a result of their pure essence, they can have a pure essence of evil, because their pure essence is that of fire. And fire can be very intense, it can be very strong, it can be very destructive. And as a result of their pure essence being that of fire and the nature of fire, so their pure essence can that be also of evil. They can be disobedient or they can be obedient, depending on how much they control themselves. And this was the state of the jinn. And the jinn, once Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, he sent them to this dunya. And they lived in this dunya before mankind was created. But the world was different then. The animals and beasts around on earth that were with the jinn, that they dealt with, just like we have animals, we have cattle and so on, we have horses, donkeys, cows, etc. We have lions, tigers, etc. We have fish, we have birds in there. These animals are a lot tame. In the time of the jinn, the beasts that were on earth were monstrous. They were ferocious and kind of reflected the nature of the jinn, just as the animals today reflect the nature of man, that they are much more docile, much more submissive. Even the wild animals like the lions or the tigers or the shark or the crocodile are not as wild as the animals in the time of the jinn. And the jinn animals, as I said, because they reflected the nature of the jinn, and they also needed to be that way, that they were incredibly ferocious, very limited in intelligence, but very ferocious in their ability, because if their brains were small, then they would not have the fear of the jinn. They would not be afraid of the jinn. And so that's what some of the writings of the Mufassirin of the past, they say that these creatures that were on the earth at the time of the jinn were the animals of the jinn. Just like we have our version of the animals that are for us, they had their version of the animals that were for them. So at that time when the jinn were on earth, the earth was in much chaos. And this is what happened with the jinn. They were fiery. They were, in terms of their attitude, their characteristics, they were very violent and aggressive because of their nature. So they fought with one another. They caused much wars and bloodshed amongst themselves. And as a result of that, much chaos occurred on earth. From its beginnings of being stable, it became very unstable, and much of the surface of the earth was in complete chaos because of the jinn. And the kind of animals that were there at the time of the jinn were the dinosaurs. This is again what many of the Mufassirin have put forward, that the animals prior to us that were on earth, which we now have evidence of, were the dinosaurs. And if the jinn were on earth prior to us, then the animals of the dinosaurs, the animals of the jinn were the dinosaurs. And this again makes sense, as I say, it's because the ferocity of the jinn was reflected in the ferocity of the beasts, the animals that they had on earth with them. So this was the land and the state of the earth at that time with the jinn. And of course, because of the chaos that they caused, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused the destruction of the jinn, and they were all taken to heaven and they were punished for that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returned them to this dunya, and we'll talk about that later on in this topic, inshallah, with shaitan, inshallah. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates mankind. Mankind in its multitudes comes to the dunya, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates mankind to now take over the earth in the absence of the jinn. However, the jinn return, but in a different manner. They now return in a manner where they're in a different dimension, so they do not interact with us directly. To us, they are unseen. We cannot see them, we cannot touch them, we cannot talk to them, we cannot communicate with them like this. From time to time, however, because they are allowed to live in a parallel dimension on earth with us, they're allowed to sometimes come over, although that is a disobedience on their part. They're allowed sometimes to come over, and sometimes they do, and infect and infest human beings. Sometimes they infest a woman, sometimes a man. It depends on the nature of the problem. Sometimes a female jinn will infect a man and possess him, because the female jinn may take a liking or may fall in love with the male. Sometimes a male jinn may fall in love with the female jinn, woman and of the human beings, and therefore possess her body as well. So these things can happen, and for other reasons as well, such as magic and other human beings befriending jinn and using them against one another. So these are the situations that we find ourselves on in the life of this dunya with respect to the jinn in this current age. So having given mankind the chance to be on earth, the angels, they ask, why would you put some being on earth that's going to shed blood? Because they'd seen the jinn do that. They had been used to seeing the jinn doing the corruption and chaos that they had, and then being returned back to Allah Ta'ala for their accountability. And so now they see mankind. Another reason some of the Mufassirin say is that they saw that the jinn were created out of fire, which is an intense form. However, it was less than their essence, which was nur. So Allah Ta'ala created something out of fire, which was less than nur. And as a result of which, they understood that these beings were chaotic on the earth. Now mankind is created out of clay. Now, when mankind is created out of clay, they understood that clay was even less than fire. So if clay was less than fire, mankind was definitely going to be corruptive. So they asked, Ya Allah, this is what they're going to do. Why would you create such a thing that is going to disobey you and disrespect you and be ungrateful to you? So they were in their awe of Allah Ta'ala. They asked this question of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And what have we done? If we look at what the angels said, look at our history now. We have a history of wars, of many wars. We have the ancient wars of the ancient empires, the Roman Empire, the Saxons, the Vikings, the Germanic tribes of Europe. Prior to that, even the dynasties of China and the Khazar Empire, which today has become modern Russia. All these ancient empires all fought with one another or amongst themselves. We then had the modern wars. We have the World War I, World War II. We have wars in the Middle East. We had the Crusades. We've had the battles between all sorts of people. All sorts of people, all sorts of nations have gone to war with one another. Nations have been completely wiped out. The Red Indians of America were completely wiped out. The Aborigines, the Zulus, subhanallah. This is our history. So when we reflect upon what the angels said, we can see they had good reason to say so. So again, going back to the ayah, what is the conclusion to this? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك. Now the angels, they respond. First they ask, will you place upon it one who causes corruption therein and sheds blood, while we declare your praise and sanctify you? This is what they were saying. We declare your praise, we sanctify you. We praise you, we honor you, we respect you, we love you, we devote ourselves to you. You are great. We are in awe of you. That's what they were saying. And this being is going to commit the kind of crimes it is because of what the jinn did prior to it, and now it will do something very similar. So now the angels knew that Allah Ta'ala is due all praise. Hence we begin Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillah. All praise is due to Allah. Everything that occurs that is of good, everything that is of benefit is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created it or gave it its nature from which we take benefit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the angels, and some of them are there to assist us in our lives. For example, some angels bring our souls down, some angels take our souls out, some angels are there to guide us, some angels are there to bring rain, some angels are there to bring good weather, to grow crops, etc., etc. However, there is also a great number of angels that Allah Ta'ala has created who are just busy in the glorification of Allah Ta'ala, standing, bowing, prostrating. There is a whole group of angels in their hundreds of thousands who have been standing and praising Allah in standing form since they were created for hundreds of thousands of years, just standing and praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing more. There are those who are in a bow, in a ruku, and they are praising Allah ta'ala in the ruku position and have been doing for hundreds of thousands of years since the day they were created, and this is before the beginning of mankind, don't forget. Then there are angels that are in prostration, in sajda. And they have been in that state since the beginning of their creation till now, for hundreds of thousands of years, that Allah knows best. So here you can see the three postures also of salah, which we've been given the honor of having in our prayer: standing, qiyam, bowing, ruku, and prostrating, sajda. The three postures of these angels. However, we pray, we stand, we do ruku, we do sajda, we get up, we give the salam, and we finish the salah. We do not remain in that posture. Yet there are angels that are in standing posture since they were created, bowing posture since they were created, prostrating position since they were created. And the hadith that talks about this goes on to say that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands for the trumpet to be blown and qiyamah to start and the end of the universe to take place, these angels will stop and look to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they say, Ya Allah, is it time already? Is it time? As the time ended? Is this now qiyamah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to them and say, yes, it is qiyamah. And they will say, Ya Allah, we haven't praised you enough. Subhanallah. We haven't praised you enough. And the time is up. They've been doing this in these three postures for hundreds of thousands of years. That's all they were created to do. And yet they do not feel it's sufficient. Something for us to look upon our salah for as well. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جائل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك قال إني أعلم ما لا تعلمون صدق الله العظيم. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concludes. He, Allah ta'ala, said, indeed, I know that which you do not know. And this is very important. This is one of the secrets of mankind. This is one of the secrets of mankind. If we were to understand this, it would benefit us greatly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't say to the angels, no, they won't. He didn't say to the angels, yes, they will. He tells them something very special. I know that which you do not know. I know something about man that you don't know it. I know something about this creation you do not know. And in this context of why he's saying it, it shows that that was something of hope. So what does it imply? It implies that despite the base material, clay, from which mankind was created, mankind has the potential to subdue his evil side and develop his righteous side. He has the ability to subdue his evil side and develop his righteous side. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling him that despite the human being having the negative traits of greed, jealousy, hatred, envy, pride, arrogance, conceit, despite having all of this, he has also love, mercy, patience, tolerance, kindness, the ability to share, to care. He has all these abilities too. And with these abilities, he can overcome the other abilities. He can overcome the shadow side of himself. He can overcome the dark side of himself, using the light side of himself. And as a result of which, he can now reach higher and higher to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by overcoming the base side. The jinn, majority of them didn't do this. Some did, but the majority didn't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them back to give him another chance. However, with man, He has given us the tools with which to do this. One, the brain. Two, the heart. With these two tools that Allah ta'ala has given us, and then the guidance from the Quran, from His kalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything we need in order to overcome our evil side, our dark side. And that is what we are supposed to do. That is the beginning of mankind. In our spiritual reflection, I want us to reflect on how well you overcome your negative side and develop the sublime side to reach Allah Ta'ala. Because through development of that, we become able to reach and close at that distance between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the angels themselves have. Their essence is pure. Their essence is nur. The jinn, their essence is ferocious. It's that crushing, destructive force of fire. And with us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he said to the angel, I know what you do not know, it means, it implies that if mankind, every single man, every single woman being given this ability, if he or she overcomes their negative side with the struggle, using their virtuous side and the Quran as the guide, and their aql, their brain and their heart as the tools, then they can get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the being that created them. They can return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They can close the distance between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in a sense, in fact, mankind has the potential to become better even than the angels, because the angels didn't have a negative side to overcome. So if a human being overcomes his or her negative side, overcomes their bitterness, their greed, their hatred, their evil, their jealousy, if they can overcome that, then they become sublime. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that amongst mankind, yes, there will be wars, there will be evil people, there will be cruel people, there will be jealous people, there will be conceited people, there will be greedy people, and much bloodshed will occur. However, from the same human beings, there will come righteous men and righteous women. There will come Sahaba, there will come Tabi'in, there will come Taba Tabi'in, there will come Anbiya alayhi salam, there will come Awliya, the saints, the martyrs, the Shuhada. These people will come. There will come the Muslim, the Mu'min, the Muttaqi, the Muhsin. These people will also come from the same group of human beings that the evil ones will come from. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave it open to all of us, and every single one of us will make that decision, will make that choice deep down within us, within ourselves. We need to be in touch with our soul. We need to know that deep down within us, the soul, unlike the human body created of clay, the soul is not created of clay. In fact, the soul is created of something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given us knowledge about. But we can understand that this soul is created of a substance that's perhaps near to what the angels have been created from, or something better. Why? Because from connecting with our souls and keeping our souls pure, we can overcome the evil side of ourselves and become, as many have the status of Anbiya, as many have the status of Sahaba. And for us, the rest of us, we have the status of Awliya, the status of saints. That is the status we can all achieve. That is incredible if we think about it, to connect with our own souls, to reach deep down within ourselves, to reflect and understand that the soul comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is separate to the body. The body is base, yes, it's made out of the base material of clay, but the soul is not. So if we connect to the higher part within ourselves, then we can reach the higher character, the higher version of ourselves with the help of the soul, with the help of the body being the brain and the heart, and with the help of Allah Ta'ala's hidayah, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran. With these things given to us through the mercy and the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala has given us all that we need to reach Him with. The choice then is back down to us. Do we do that or do we not? That will be, on the Day of Judgment, something we will have to answer for. But the greatness of Allah Ta'ala, the grandness of Allah Ta'ala, and the love and the mercy He's shown us, it must only compel any person with a thinking mind and a feeling heart to want to get near to this being that has done so much for us and has promised us so much more in the future, inshallah, in the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to benefit from this, all of us. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.